Final witness for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Chase Michael to the stand.
Start.
Before we begin, permission to prepare the courtroom for demonstrative.
Yep.
Opposing counsel, may we use your demo stand?
Absolutely.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Please.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Certainly. I'm Chase Michael.
Mr. Michael, what's your current occupation?
I currently own and operate N5 Political Research. We're a polling firm.
What sort of educational background led you to owning your own polling company?
Well, I received my bachelor's in political science and then my master's in demographic and social analysis. I then went on to work in the field in 2001. I worked for about 7 or 8 years, but I just wasn't happy with the way that other companies did business, so I started my own to make sure we got it right.
How are you involved in today's case?
I was retained by Mayor Heisman to help analyze the results of the election and some polls we conducted. I'm on her senior staff, as I am with everyone who retains our polling firm for their campaigns.
Permission to approach what's already in evidence as plaintiff 5?
Yep.
The memorandum. Mr. Michael, you said you're on the senior staff. Have you ever seen this memo that's addressed to senior staff?
Not before today, no.
Thank you. Permission to approach. So you said that you conducted some polls and analysis. How exactly do you go about doing that?
Well, there's 2 basic steps to conducting a poll. The first is gathering raw data. My associates and I would go out, we hit the streets from about 7 in the morning to 7 or 8 at night. We're asking people questions, writing down their answers. We also like to cold call people. That gets us a lot of good info. Afterwards, we then analyze this data. We apply chi-squared and t-tests to ensure that the data we've gathered is representative of the population size. It's very complicated, but eventually it allows us to draw conclusions from the evidence.
So in this particular case, what sort of polling data did you create for the Heisman campaign?
Well, there were 2 polls in particular. There was one in mid-February and then one in mid-March, right before the election.
And would you recognize those polls if I showed them to you?
I would.
Permission to approach opposing counsel and witness in turn. What's constructed in March's defense, A and B. February and March polls. February being A, March being B. Permission to approach witness. Mr. Michael, I just handed you 2 polls. Could you identify both of them?
Certainly. The first one is the February 18th poll N5 conducted, and the second one is the March 16th poll.
And are these polls part of your regular business for the Heisman campaign?
Absolutely. That's what they retain us to do.
At this time, defense moves both into evidence. It's full exhibits.
Objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
Now, Mr. Michael, besides these polls, are there any other documents that you rely upon in coming to your conclusions?
Well, certainly. I also looked at the election results that actually came out of the election in 2015.
Permission to approach the witness or opposing counsel and the witness in turn?
Yep.
What's been constructed in March's defense, C and D, 2011, 2015. And Mr. Michael, I just handed you 2 election results. Could you please identify them?
Certainly. The first one is the results of the 2011 mayoral election in Truman. This was provided to me by the public office. And then the second one is the 2015 election results from this most recent year.
At this time, the defense moves C and D into evidence as full exhibits.
Objection?
Pursuant to the order on autonomous motions and trial procedures, this has been ruled upon and they are admissible. No objections.
Mr. Michael, after you've collected this data, what sort of analysis did you do in this case?
Well, first I looked at how Ginger's support had changed between February and March in my polls. I brought along a histogram to better explain that.
Permission for the witness to step down and make use of the demonstrative.
Yep.
Your Honor, I would object to the opposing counsel using their demonstrative. Pursuant to the stipulations regarding today's case, stipulation 4, constructively being heard outside the members of the jury.
Of course.
Their demonstrative aids are going to elicit data from districts 1 through districts 11. In today's case, those districts are not in dispute as far as their elections results go.
Can I see stipulation 4, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so what's your argument based on this stipulation?
The demonstrative aid that they'll be using is irrelevant as data from districts 1 through 11 are not in dispute in today's case. And even if the court deems it relevant, pursuant to Rule 403, it is confusing the issues of today's case.
One at a time. You guys love making multiple objections at once. One at a time. What is your response to the relevance aspect of Mr. Sample's argument?
It's highly relevant for the jury to see context.
Can I see the?
Yes,
You
Your Honor.
can. You don't
This
have to
particular,
highlight it.
this is this particular. So this is showing change in support for Ginger between February and March. And so it's important for the members of the jury to understand the context and not just see District 12, to see how all the districts are combined and how certain events like the GAF in March could have impacted Ms. Ginger's polling data leading up to the election. This is simply for context, and we're not at all saying that fraud was alleged in Districts 1 through 11 pursuant to that stipulation.
What's the other one?
The other one, Your Honor, is comparing the 2011 and 2015 polling data. So showing the number of voters who came out. So it's showing the change between 2011 and 2015.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
The gaffe that the opposing counsel is referring to from the testimony of Jody Sandberg, we only heard that this audio tape was released to District 12 voters. So saying that it affected Districts 1 through 11, there's no foundation for his argument to be validated.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yeah.
That's exactly our point, and that's exactly why District 12 shows an 8.1% drop. So this is to provide context to show that that gaffe and the fact that it was only shown to District 12 specifically influenced Ginger's polls in District 12, which led to the outcome of this election. Therefore, it's highly relevant for them to be able to compare that to the others. We're by no means saying that fraud occurred in Districts 1 through 11.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Very, very briefly.
The charges in today's case are geared towards District 12 only, and we have to show that it changed the outcome of the election from District 12 only. So showing the members of the jury Districts 1 through 11 are irrelevant in today's trial.
I think this is very overruled on relevance grounds. Make a short 403 argument if you're still making that argument.
Yes, Your Honor. If the outcome of Districts 1 through 11 are not in dispute, showing this to the jury will confuse the issues of today's case.
I disagree. Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you feel that Mr. Vandenberg goes beyond what he has stated they're using the data for, feel free to renew either of those objections.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Michael, what are we looking at here?
So this is the difference in the support for Ginger by district between February polls and the March polling data I collected. Most of the districts jump in favor of Ginger, however, District 12 showed an 8% move in favor of Mayor Heisman in that month.
As a pollster, do you know potential reasons why someone may see an 8% drop just before the election?
Sure, there's all kinds of reasons. There's the obvious ones like a political misstep, but there's less obvious things. Studies have shown that if the local baseball team, I think in Truman it's the Truman Jazz Cats, if they win their most recent home game right before the election, people vote for the incumbent. No one really understands why, but it happens.
So I want to make one other thing clear for the members of the jury. Do you know if fraud alone could have caused this sort of drop in Ginger support?
The evidence I reviewed showed that fraud would have affected all the voters equally, so it shouldn't show a change in support between Ginger and Heisman.
So besides looking at Ginger's drop of support leading up to the election, what else did you look at?
I also looked at the change in the number of voters between the 2011 mayoral and 2015 mayoral elections in Truman.
Permission for the witness to use the second demonstrative?
Mm-hmm. You can use them all.
Mr. Michael, this is a different chart. What is this?
So basically what I did was I looked at the number of voters who showed up on voting day in Truman in 2011 and the number of voters who showed up in 2015, and I compared the two. I like to look at number of voters because registration, it can be volatile and erratic, especially in emotionally charged elections. It doesn't really correlate well with how many people show up on election day to press the red button or pull the blue lever or what have you.
So when you looked at the number of people who voted in 2015 versus the number of people who voted in 2011, what sort of trends did you see?
Well, I saw that District 12 had the third highest jump in percentage of voters at 1.2%.
So I want to know, how does this relate to the actual outcome of the election where Mayor Heisman won?
Well, to better understand that, I had to look at a marginal advantage. May I have a marker?
Yes.
Thank you. So I had to look at marginal advantage.
What's marginal advantage?
So picture that you have Mayor Heisman and Elizabeth Ginger running a foot race. You let them run for a minute, and then you stop the clock and see where they are. Now let's say that in that minute, Mayor Heisman's run 17 yards. And in that same time period, Ginger has gone 82 yards. Well, marginal advantage is the distance between those two after that minute. In this case, it's 65 yards. So that means that over the course of that minute, Elizabeth Ginger is now 65 yards in front of Max Heisman.
So how does this running analogy compare to the actual election?
Well, my March poll showed, and the election results confirmed, that for every 100 voters that came out in District 12, 82 of them would vote for Ginger, and 17 or 18 of them would vote for Mayor Max Heisman.
So what does that mean in relation to the actual margin that Ms. Ginger lost by?
Well, the election results showed that Ms. Ginger lost by 223 votes. So to force a change in outcome, there would have to be 224 votes for her to be declared the victor. But since not every voter in District 12 is voting for Elizabeth Ginger, that number actually correlates to 350 more voters on election day.
So you're saying that for the outcome of the election to change, 350 more people would have to come out to vote. What would that look like on this chart here?
Well, if we saw 350 more voters above and beyond what we already saw from District 12, that would be a jump of about 4%. It'd be about here. It's actually off the chart.
Now, in your experience as a pollster, have you ever seen somewhere have a jump in voters that large?
In my 14 years of doing polls, I've never seen anything like that. It's statistically highly improbable.
Given all of this, what are your conclusions regarding the outcome of the 2015 election?
It's highly unlikely that the number of District 12 voters that showed up would have been great enough to change the outcome of the election.
Thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Sample?
Yes, Your Honor.